Welcome back to the conversation of your microgroup journey. If you're watching this, you're probably preparing to either begin rotating leadership or discussing next steps in your group. So let's start with introducing a leadership rotation. This begins in session 13 when you assign each of your group members at least 2 sessions to lead the group. And this may need to be altered based on the amount of people in your group. So over the past 13 weeks of your microgroup, you have modeled leadership, and now it's time for group members to try it out. For some, this might be a little intimidating. Remind them that this group is a great place to try out leading. Remind them of the vision of your microgroup to grow to be like Jesus and make disciples. Remind them that taking next steps of discipleships will stretch them, because if there isn't any challenge, there wouldn't be any growth. So once you have that leadership rotation mapped out, make sure you check in and remind group members when it's their turn to lead. Also, feel free to offer any insight to leading through the weekly discussion guide that you have gained over the past several weeks of your group. Once the rotation is in place, you are off to the races for the next several weeks. And then when you arrive at week 22, now is the time to begin discussion on the next steps for your group. This discussion will continue on until the final session of the group. So to get it going, you will use the group next steps discussion on page 154 and 55. This discussion will help your group begin to process what could be next for discipleship and growth. Together, you will look at some discipleship passages on obedience, godly character, and discipleship. And afterwards, you will discuss some steps that you could take. And you may not be able to fully answer the take action questions in this session, so some of these may need to be prayerfully considered over the next few sessions towards the end of your group. So with all that in mind, let's talk through some of the next steps your group could take. First, your microgroup could continue on. If this is the case, then you can make a plan to recommit for another 6 months. Again, discuss the purpose and expectation of your group for those 6 months. You may want to sign another group commitment. For your study time, you could use one of the additional reading plans in the guide, or you can choose a book of the Bible and then read through it. Regardless, continue to use the post-study method and the weekly discussion guide. Also, you don't have to fully follow that microgroup roadmap. If you do, we would recommend still doing the prayer wheel experience again, but the spiritual self-assessment and the sharing your story exercises would be optional. At the end, you will arrive at the same point you are now, discuss those next steps again, and then dive into whatever's next for your group. Second, your group could continue on and add new members. Microgroups are for 3 to 6 people. If you're on the lower end of that number, you may want to add a couple more people. If that is the case, choose a reading plan and start the microgroup guide over. Since there are new people involved, you want to repeat all the experiences and exercises together. If you have more people to invite that would push your number beyond 6 people, then you may want to consider a couple options. First, maybe you branch out and become 2 microgroups, or maybe you jump into a larger group format and become a life group. Say the main difference beyond size of microgroups and life groups is that there is more freedom to choose what you study during your group time. Finally, some or all of your group could multiply and start new groups. Say your one group of 3 could become 3 groups of 3, and that shifts from 3 to 9 people growing to be like Jesus through microgroups. If this is the case, follow the pray and invite sections on page 157 and 58. These sections will give you guidance on how to seek out and invite new members into those microgroups. Everyone will have different next steps beyond just continuing on or multiplying in your group. Again, keep the discussion going during the remaining sessions of your group. Together, share all the planned next steps, pray over them, and then obediently pursue where God is leading next. So this brings us to the conclusion of our time together. Thank you for making the microgroup journey. I hope you've been able to take next steps towards the goal of helping people grow to be like Jesus and making disciples through life-changing community. I think the best way to end this video is in the same way that we began our microgroup conversation with the words of Jesus in Matthew 28, 19 through 20. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you. And surely I'm with you always to the very end of the age.